تنال بقربه شرف الجناب.
So continuing from the previous lesson, we were on the topic of ihsan, and we mentioned that ihsan, it means to do good actions, and this is in relation to the soul. So in regard to the soul, the sciences of Nafs, which means the purification of the soul. The other terms which have been used for the purification of the soul are tasawwuf and Nafs. But the original term which was used by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the word ihsan, as we did in the hadith of Jibreel, when Jibreel alayhi salam said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Akhbirni anil ihsan," that tell me about ihsan. And that was when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Jibreel alayhi salam about ihsan, the purification of the soul. Now the term ihsan, tasawwuf, and Nafs, they all mean the same thing. It's the same science which has been covered with these titles, but they all really mean the same thing. But ihsan was the original term which was used by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So before going any further, we need to know some definition of what exactly is the nafs and what exactly is the soul. Is there a difference between the nafs and the soul, or is it the same thing? Now we see in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ فِي نَفْسِكَ, that remember your Rabb in your nafs, meaning in your own self. Now the ulama mention that there is a difference between the soul and the nafs. The first difference between the soul and the nafs is that the soul is something which remains with you throughout your time, your 5 stages of life, whereas the nafs, it only remains with you in one of them stages. So the 5 stages of life, the first stage is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all the souls, and this was in Alame Arwah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all the souls, and He said, Alastu bi rabbikum, that am I not your Rabb? And all the souls, they replied, yes, our Rabb, you are indeed our Lord. This was the first stage, and we all promised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will obey Him in everything. So that was the first stage. And the second stage of life is in the womb of your mother, and this is approximately about 9 months. And it is in the third stage when a child is born into this world, and this is the moment when the nafs is attached to the soul, and it remains with the soul till the person dies. And then that is the time when the nafs, it finishes its connection with the soul. And the evidence for this is the hadith, the famous hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw the Sahabi who had passed away and his eyes remained open. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Ila sa'ada ruh," that his ruh has gone up, meaning that the ruh has now left the nafs. And this is where the connection of the ruh and the nafs, it finishes. And it is also mentioned that this is the period of time when the person himself, you will see your own soul leaving your body, and it is a short period of time. And this is why it is explained that the eyes remain open, because they see the soul coming out of the body. And the fourth stage of the soul is the life of the barzakh. That is the fourth stage of the soul, the ruh. And the fifth stage of the ruh is in the akhirat. That will be either in Jannat, or that will either be in the hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all Jannat, inshallah ta'ala. So they are the 5 stages of the soul, whereas the nafs, it only has one stage, and that is the stage of this dunya, in this life. And that is where the battle really is. That is where the real test is, to see how you can fight against this nafs. We need to highlight what exactly is the nafs. What do we mean by the nafs? Because this is the science which we'll be doing alongside with KITABUL Iman, and looking at how we can change ourselves, how we can apply these hadiths to ourselves. So what exactly is the word nafs? The word nafs refers to yourself, the own being. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned in the Quran, وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ فِي نَفْسِكَ, that remember your Rabb in your nafs, in yourself. Now the word nafs, its meaning is that it is an inner strength within yourself which can incline you towards good or incline you towards bad. Now the general nature of the nafs is that it will incline you towards evil. The nature of the nafs is that it simply just commands you to do and fulfill its desires, whatever it desires, whatever it wants. The nafs by nature doesn't like to do anything which is of hardship. It likes to have ease, it likes to have luxury, and to have a big name in the community, to be well recognized, and to fulfill all the desires. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي إِنَّ رَبِّي غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Indeed, the human is inclined towards the evil except for the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a mercy upon him. So the ulama, they go on to mention that this type of the nafs is known as the ammara bisu. The nafs ammara bisu is that type of the nafs which inclines the person to do evil. It inclines the person to fulfill its desires and not to do anything difficult. It doesn't want to do anything in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ulama also go on to mention that one of the natures of the nafs is that it wants to hide your defects from yourself. And it is for this reason when someone calls you a liar or maybe he mentions certain defects about you, then immediately you react and immediately you start to say bad things about the other person. But how often is it that we ask ourselves that is it true what the other person is saying? Maybe I have got these defects in myself. Maybe I am a liar. Maybe I do get jealous of people. Maybe I do hate certain people. Maybe I do backbite certain people. Maybe I do slander certain people. Now this is very hard to admit this and to accept this fact that a person does have these defects within himself, because the nature of the nafs is that it will always respond to yourself and it will say that no, you do not have these defects within yourself, but rather it is so and so who has these defects. So this nafsi ammara, it tricks the person by telling it that the people outside, they have these defects, and it hides the defects of the person itself. So the person is blind from seeing its own defects, and never does he admit his own defects. And the reality is every single human being has these defects. Every single human being. And if it wasn't for the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if it wasn't for the fazl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we would all remained as impure. We would have had so much defects. We would have had so much illnesses of the soul that we would have been corrupt, and we will not be able to enter into Jannat in that state. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if it was not for the fazl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you and His rahmah, not a single one of you would have been pure. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purifies whoever He wishes. So this is the nafs ammara, the nafs which does not fight for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The nafs that doesn't do any kind of mujahada, it doesn't work hard for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it falls for the sins, and it falls for the desires of the eyes, the desires of the luxuries of the world, and it has this desire of getting more and more money of the dunya that it can get. This type of a nafs, it is amongst the failures, and there will be a severe punishment for this type of a person who has this kind of a nafs. The second type of a nafs is known as the nafsi lawwama, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned this in the Quran, وَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالنَّفْسِ اللَّوَّامَةِ, and I swear by the soul which blames itself, the reproaching soul. So this type of a soul, this type of a nafs, what it does, it blames itself, it questions itself, and it knows that it's doing wrong, and he wants to do good, or she wants to do good, and they recognize their defects, and they are trying, but they are unable to do so. So they keep falling and they keep getting up. They recognize they've got these defects, and they always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, give me the power to be a better Muslim. So this is known as a higher level, and these are those people who are trying to become better. They are trying to do more than the faraiz. It just happens to be that they are falling into certain sins or certain addictions which they are now hooked onto in regards to sinning. So now when they are hooked onto these sins, or when they are addicted to certain sins, then it starts to become very, very difficult upon the nafs. But this person who has the nafs lawwama, he always blames himself, he questions himself, and he asks him that I need to get rid of this sin. He always has this guilt inside his heart, and he also feels shame, and he feels embarrassment in regards to doing this sin. This is the nafs which is known as the nafs lawwama, and it is the soul which is trying, and it is trying to become a better person, but he's falling short on certain sins. And the reality is, the ulama mentioned that this is where majority of the mankind, they fall into this category, because we are all sinners and we all do wrong things, and we realize we have this regret, and we are trying to make ourselves better. However, in the next stage which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, this is the highest of the stage, and this is known as the nafsul mutma'inna, meaning that stage of the soul where it has reached the stage of peace, or the stage of tranquility, and it has molded its nature of the dirt and the evil and the wrongdoings. It's molded its nature into good. Now doing good for this person becomes very easy, and now to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happy, it becomes very easy. Now to do the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it becomes very easy. So this stage cannot be reached unless you go through the stages of tazkiyatun nafs, unless you go through the stages of how to pure yourself. And in regards to the purification of the soul, it means two things. First of all is to recognize the defects within ourselves, to know what are these illnesses within ourselves. And the second stage is to act upon that solution. The solution which has been mentioned in the sciences of Tazkiyah, the solution of how to get rid of these illnesses within us. And to understand this is the example of when you go to the doctor. So when the doctor tells you that this is your illness, and then he will prescribe a medicine for you. So after prescribing your medicine, your treatment, now the next job is that you must take the medicine. It's not good enough that you just look at the medicine, you've been to the doctors, that's not good enough. Now the next stage is you have to take that medicine. So exactly the same is in this situation. After knowing the solution to these illnesses of the soul, we also need to act upon these solutions. And it is only then we will be able to remove these illnesses within ourselves. Now the ulama have differed in regards to how much of the sciences of Tazkiyah do we actually need to learn. So there's two groups in regards to the ulamas who have differed into this. The first group of ulama, they have said that it is farz-e-ayn, that you have to study every single illness of the soul. Farz-e-ayn means that something that you have to do. It's something which is compulsory upon you. So just like the 5 times salah, this is compulsory on you. No one can read this on your behalf. So exactly the same, this is the meaning of farz-e-ayn, that you have to do this, and if you don't do it, you will be sinful for not doing it. The other group of ulama, they said that it is farz-e-kifaya. You don't have to learn every single illness of the soul, but you only have to learn some parts of it, the illnesses that you actually suffer from. Now farz-e-kifaya means that if someone from the community learns it, that someone in the society learns it, then it will suffice everyone, because everyone can go to that person and they can learn from that person if they are suffering from a particular illness. And the example of Fard Kifaya is Janaza. Now in Salatul Janaza, if no one reads the Salatul Janaza of a particular deceased person, then the whole community will be sinful. But if one person reads the Salatul Janaza, then that will suffice the whole community. But if no one does it, then the whole community will be sinful of it. So exactly the same here. The ulama say that it is Fard Kifaya, meaning that if one scholar or a certain amount of scholars within a community, they learnt all the illnesses of the soul, then it will suffice everyone, because everyone can learn from that scholar in regards to the illnesses which they are suffering from. But the other group of scholars, they said no, you must learn every single illness. And the Rajih call seems to be the first group of scholars who said that you must learn every single illness of the soul. The reason being why this seems to be most authentic call is because if a person didn't learn about the sciences of the soul, the sciences of Tazkiyah, then how will he recognize these illnesses if he's suffering from them? So he needs to have the knowledge of the sciences of Tazkiyah to even recognize these illnesses. So this is the most Rajih call, and this is the view of Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah as well, which he has inclined towards. Now what exactly is the definition of Tazkiyah? The word Tazkiyah has two broad meanings. The first meaning is purification, to purify something. So if I was to say, Hal Zakayta Haza Sawb, that have you purified this soul? Zakayta, the word Zakayta is same meaning of Tazkiyah. And the same word which the word zakat is also being derived from this same word. So this means to purify. So when we use this same word zakaya, we use this in the same meaning in the word of zakat. It means that it is purifying your wealth. So this is why we give zakat, and this is compulsory upon us. So it purifies our mal and our wealth because of this. Similarly, when you use this in the linguistic meaning, the word tazkiyah, like zakaita or zakaitu, that I purified or you purified. So this is in the linguistic meaning, it means purification. The other meaning is to increase in something, and this is also found in the meaning of the word zakat as well. So when we give zakat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us that the zakat does not decrease your wealth, but rather it increases your wealth. So this is also the second meaning of the word tazkiyah when it is used in different terms. So when we use the word tazkiyah in relation to the soul, we mean the purification of the soul. The purification within the illnesses within ourselves, those illnesses which the Prophet ﷺ told us that if we have these within ourselves, then it is lazim upon us that we must go to the hellfire. No soul can go into Jannat if they have these illnesses within themselves. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us all from the hellfire, inshallah ta'ala. But this is the reason of why we need to learn these illnesses, so we do not have to go to the hellfire, and we are saved from this punishment which the Prophet ﷺ has told us about, which will be for those people who had these severe illnesses within themselves. So first thing is we need to learn about these illnesses, and this is something which we will be doing side by side in Kitabul Iman, inshallah ta'ala.